or else I'm in the wrong. Getting sat down, I'm realizing that this is like halfway up my nostril, so that's not going to be good. I'll just hold 1 second. No pictures, please. We're gonna say a prayer real quick before we start class. I asked Mike if there were any pressing prayer requests. He was saying Lucille Rhodes is at this time. Okay, let us go to God in prayer. God, we're grateful for this day, grateful for the opportunity that we have to be here together with the Lord's Church on a Wednesday night, that we, putting that pacemaker in, we understand that once we put our control in the hands of other people, that's when we start to get most anxious, because it's not in you, but just know that we can realize that it does come from you ultimately, and let your will be done in all of that, God. Please be with us tonight as we study from your word. Help us to understand more about what it means to defend the faith and continue and live lives battling and contesting your truth and yours alone, God. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen. Okay, if you have eyes and you are looking at the screen, we're talking about design demands designer. This important truth comes from the one of the that is not what we have been studying, I guess. No, so they're more like philosophical. Okay, so that's one of them. They're okay. There we go. Morality, the law of morality, the law of the designer. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We've got two more, if anyone can think of them. There we go. Good, great guess. Yeah, the cosmological argument, study of the universe. Yes, yeah, the ontological argument. If you can think that it's true, then it can be true. Perfect. Someone's using. Okay, I am in the right class. Cool. So yeah, there's four major arguments. What we're going to be talking about tonight is this idea. Is the remote back there? Here I am. Never taught a class up here in my whole life. Yeah, we got it. Okay. Mike, I don't need you anymore. All right. We can go. Oh, hold on. We're gonna be here till 8. All right. So this idea of telos, or the teleological argument, it's this idea of end goal or ultimate purpose. That's the idea of what it is. Like if there's the argument, if there is a design, there must be a designer. It comes even further when we're talking about, well, what is the design? You know, what is the function? What is the purpose of this design? Are we talking about something that is designed and has no purpose? Or is there just a seamless nothingness when it comes to things that are created? And I think we would, want to understand as people that if there is a design to something, there must be some kind of purpose to it. There must be some kind of goal. If you make a robot and the ultimate purpose of the robot is to slice butter, and the robot does anything but slice butter, you know, it does your taxes for you. It tells you who's going to win the Super Bowl for the next 50 years. That's a pretty intelligent thing, but I think still as people, like if we were the ones to create that robot and it doesn't do the designed purpose, is that a worthwhile invention? No, we're still going to look for ways to create the butter slicer robot thing, right? That's kind of what we're wanting to get out of it. And so that it extends even further into the rest of creation, us as people, animals, plants, the stars, the moon, the rest of the galaxy, things that we wouldn't necessarily feel like that there's like a definable or easily understood design or purpose to it, but we would want to maybe try and assign purpose to different things. Like that's kind of what we're going to aim for as people, especially under the premise that there is an overall designer, this overarching creator, designer of the universe. If he has designed things, there must be a purpose to it. There must be a purpose to literally everything. And that, I guess, again, it extends to us and extends to things that we don't know necessarily, or it's not completely clear, but we're going to try and figure it out as best as we can. So the claim for this is if there is a design, right, there must be a designer. That's the idea. That's the teleological argument. But then even further, on recognizing, specifically focusing more on telos, is if they're a design, there must be a telos to its design. Okay? So there's a bunch of major theories as to the telos of the universe. You know, why is the universe created? You know, what goal does it serve? What, you know, the different things in our world, each and every single day, there must be some kind of meaning to it, and there are multiple theories as to what that looks like. So the first one's the philosophical view. It shows all nature has intrinsic telos, right? It has some kind of core nature to it that says, I have. We're not doing that. There's some kind of goal that, you know, this is why this was created, in order to accomplish this. Everything is created by God, therefore there must be some kind of meaning to it. Now, philosophical view doesn't necessarily look at it at the viewpoint or the premise or the assumption that God exists, but they still view it in the realm of saying, okay, well, if there is, you know, if there's something in this universe, it has some type of meaning. There's no garbage, there's no trash, unless it's something that was already created and then already depleted of its purpose. You know, food, we all understand what happens when we use the, you know, when we correctly use the purpose of food. You know, we eat it, and then moments later it leaves us, and it's no longer food. It's now waste, right? That's as PC as I can get. So it goes even further, talking about eyes. Eyes are developed or they're created for sight. Acorns, you just look at an acorn on the ground, you may look at it and think, well, there's nothing really here, but if you plant it, and then, if let God do the work, or let the universe do its thing, and then after a certain amount of time, there's an oak tree, and just came from that small little acorn. So taking that even further to talk about the idea that all things are created, that it has some purpose to their existence. That's the overall idea. Okay, the scientific view, and the one that we would naturally hesitate to agree with, but one that is true all the same, because science is knowledge. There are theories to science, and then we'll maybe contest the theories, but science still exists. It's not fake at all, but scientific view, it shows us, or their idea of it, basically says in one way that there's no telos to the universe, but in another way, there is still some type of meaning to it. And they would talk about this idea of complete rest or extinction. All things build to rest, and that comes with the second law of thermodynamics, which is the law of entropy. Basically, just the process from order to disorder. That's the idea of what energy does, is that it continues to create not chaos, but a lack of order, non-order, more than disorder, I guess. And then once all of energy is completely consumed, throughout the entirety of the universe, it would finally get to the what's called heat death, or there's another word, another phrase, freeze, the freeze plan, something like that. But it's this idea of, again, energy continuing to spread out to where all of energy is completely dispersed equally throughout the universe. Thereby, suns don't exist anymore, or that they've all been depleted of their energy. There's no life on Earth, because, even in the places of non-matter, energy extends to that point. So there's that view, the scientific view. Then we have the existential view, which kind of turns it on its head a little bit, and kind of says that if the universe has a mind of its own and it has a meaning to it, it's not. They would argue that it's not really interested in having a meaning or a telos. The universe does not tell us its telos. Therefore, in flipping it around, we're telling the universe what its telos is. We're telling the universe, okay, this is what you're designed to do. And then the biblical view, and this is what we get when we look at a passage like Psalm 19, verse 1. If I can turn there, my pages are a little sticky. I do have it on a later slide, but whatever. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork." So now this is a very interesting way of viewing the universe, I would say. It's not something that we would typically think about as people, because how does the sky have a language? How does the heavens have a language? How is it declaring the glory of God? That's not something that we would say that happens on a physical, literal level. And so then we're led to perceive it more as a poetic way of thinking about, okay, this is how this happens. And, seeing just the idea that the heavens and the sky exist, that happens, that creates its language. It creates its way of communicating what we're trying to get out of it. But I would take it one step further and kind of realize this idea of Psalm 19:1, it is declaring these things to be true, right? That's what it's saying. So more than that, than just this poetic way of saying, this exists, therefore God exists. No, it literally does communicate, but not just in a way that we would understand it. If it's not speaking the English language is what I'm getting at. But what it does is it does communicate in a certain language that we're all able to understand from it, right? Looking at a sunset, getting on top of a mountain and looking at all of, everything around you. Just having that moment where you can turn around in a 360-degree angle and looking at everything around you and recognizing how beautiful creation is. You know, in our minds, especially as Christians, we are kind of trained to believe that God exists because of that. And that's the training that David, the one who writes Psalm 19, that's what he's trying to get at here. That's what he's trying to show us, to say, okay, well, this is the purpose. This is the design. So ultimately, what God is trying to communicate as David is writing this is saying, look at everything around you. That is how you see God. This is how you understand the evidence for God. Now, that's the biblical view. This comes even more in certain examples, like just the word Yahweh. Everyone, not with your nose, but with your mouth, breathe in and out just for 1 second. Did you hear that? This might sound too spiritual, I don't know. The breathing in, it's this sound. It kind of sounds like a YH sound, sort of. If you can see it, and if you can imagine with me, it's kind of where we're getting. And then breathing out. Right? The same way that you would use your mouth for the Y and the W in the word Yahweh, that's to show this breathing in and out. So literally, we're all, as people, we are creations of God, Christian or not, theist or atheist. Every single person is preaching his glory. That's not something that I think we sit on. That's, we're breathing. If anything, we're breathing with our nostrils, and y'all can hear all of my nostrils very clearly tonight. But recognizing for a second that that's the way that God wanted us to live as people. Breathing is required for living, and in doing so, we are preaching his glory through just our own breathing. Also, going to the very beginning of the universe, there's this idea of the universe's first word. So bear with me. I'm going to be reading something real quick. So there's this thing called cosmic microwave background. I did a little bit of study on this. I'm not an expert at all. This thing called cosmic microwave background. So what this is people over at NASA, or the scientists, they're looking through their telescopes, looking through their technology, the spaces in the universe where you see that there's like blankness in, right? Just for a second. So like, we're over here. Thank you. For some reason I was pointing here. That is not helping y'all at all. Right, all this stuff around here, right? All this is matter, energy, whatnot. But like right in between this red dot here and all of this space out here, there's this nothingness. There's actually not nothingness, from what I understand. There is the oldest light imaginable. There's still light there. It's just not something that we can easily see with our human eye. The idea of it is what they have done is they look at that and they say, okay, well, this is the oldest light in the history of the existence of the universe. And what they're doing is that they're measuring this, and they're trying to understand these deep scientific truths based on looking at the perceived nothingness, right? But the matterless, perceivably matterless area. So, right, the places that we think are totally dark but are not. There was this study in the early 2000s. It says that physicists analyzing data from the cosmic microwave background, again, the nothingness, right? This area all of around without the other spaces of light, right? Analyzing the data from the cosmic microwave background, they said that they discovered that the infant universe actually rippled with literal sound waves. Because the early universe was an incredibly dense, hot plasma, it acted like a giant acoustic chamber. So when everything was together, this is all under the pretense of the Big Bang Theory, which I don't think that we should really run away from, because Big Bang Theory sounds a lot like the beginning of creation, right? God spoke it and then it exists. God speaking nothing into something. So this idea, even scientists are just observing this. And then this idea of the cosmic hum, right? This literal sound waves that they're finding in the cosmic microwave background. So it's in this area that they have been able to kind of amplify to the point where humans can hear it whenever they're measuring it, and they're seeing, they're recognizing that the beginning of the universe did not start with a sudden sharp explosion, but it was a deep, resonant, bass-heavy cosmic hum that filled all of space for the first several 100,000 years, almost like a single sustained note holding creation together. That's all their studies, that's all of what they've determined, concluded based on measuring this cosmic microwave background. So all of that can get way over everyone's heads, including mine. The point of it is to see that the creation of the universe, even from what just scientists are saying, they have no say, they're just trying to understand science. They're saying the beginning of the universe did not start with a sharp, loud explosion, but a low, this cosmic hum. And just imagining this idea of whenever we look at the Genesis story, this creation story, where it says that God spoke things into existence, it's an interesting comparison. It's interesting to imagine for a second that that's potentially how things came to be. So that's kind of the idea. That's the biblical view, finding the examples and how we can see and kind of have certain evidences for the biblical view. Now we're going to understand, these three other views, the philosophical, the scientific, and the existential view, how they fit within the capacities of Scripture, right? What the Bible is able to teach us about this idea of design, or telos. So Colossians 1:16, it says, "For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him." Again, this philosophical view where it says that all of nature has intrinsic telos. The Bible emphasizes that. It doesn't run away from it, but it actually impacts it even further. It points out that, okay, there's truth to this. There's some type of understanding, right? Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, these great philosophers throughout history, they can come to this understanding that all of life, all of nature has this intrinsic telos, but the Bible already speaks to that. The Bible declares this fact, and that people can rely on that. The scientific view, that the telos in the world, that a bit of meaning or goal or design purpose that they would agree with, that they say that the ultimate point of it is complete rest or extinction. We are very clear in looking at our Bibles, where it says in Psalm 102, verses 25 and 26, it says, "Of old you laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you will remain. They will all wear out like a garment. You will change them like a robe, and they will pass away." Right? So it's this clear idea, right? The second law of thermodynamics, this law of entropy, it's not fake. This is true. This is a reality. This is a constant. And that matches our understanding of the universe, is that God created it, but he created it knowing that once the reality of life happens, and then the fall of man in Genesis 3, this creation that he invented, this universe that he allowed, that he created to exist, it is withering away. It is dying. That fits within science. It fits within what other people are talking about with the universe. And then the existential view, the universe is not interested in having a telos. We have this poetic way of looking at life, that it's not necessarily all is good and everything is great and we're all just to just consume everything all the time. Rather, we have the preacher, or Kohelet, as Solomon calls himself in Ecclesiastes. And it says in Ecclesiastes 1, verses 2 and 3, it says, "Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun?" So, these are the three more major theories about telos, or the meanings of the universe. And we're seeing very clearly, right? The biblical view has its own idea, right? Psalm 19:1. But then these other people who are trying to suggest other things, and yeah, the philosophical view in certain capacities, it is designed to say, no, this is better than the biblical view. But there's a way to harmonize these different views together. That's kind of the point of what I'm trying to make here. This idea of telos, of meaning, right? If God created things in the universe, there must be some meaning to it. All of it goes back to the Bible. All of it goes back into this deep well of truths and knowledge about God and his existence and his power. And it's just something for us to look into, and it's something for us to accept. Okay. Are there any questions, comments, or thoughts so far? I know I've just kind of rambled at y'all for a bit, but any thoughts at all? I think that's the kind of, and I don't know if this is. I read the book, Kyle Butt, Eric Lyons, Defending God, his existence in the universe, right? I think there's something to be gained out of reading from a book like this and seeing that very clear, like you can see the examples. But I think intrinsically there has to be some type of biblical philosophy, and going down into the crevices of what we're kind of what is happening around in life. And I think we're asking the question, like, what is my worth? What is my value? What is the meaning of all of this? And there's other people who have all these other ideas outside of the church, sometimes even inside of the church. Christians don't always hold to a very biblical view as to why things come about. They might appeal to a more scientific nature, or a more philosophical or a more existential view. But all of it fits within the Bible, because the Bible shows us, okay, this is life, and how am I able to accept it? Not just work my brain around trying to fit everything, or that things have their own categories and boxes, and I can easily just divide them from each other. No, everything is to be harmonized. Everything is to be grouped together and accepted. So I think that's kind of where I want to go with this more deepness of what we're talking about. So I appreciate the thought. Anything else? Go ahead. Mm, true. Right. Mm, It's true. Hmm. It's true. Yeah. No, I mean that's fine. I have no problem with any of that. Yeah. I think it's very important. And as John was or Ed Berger, sorry, was saying, this concept of leaning on to the Bible, being very clear on these stands that you'll make, these defenses that you're going to bring up. We have to get back to the Bible because there's going to be other people that would suggest other things. There's going to be other things that go around, and it sounds biblical or it comes from a biblical understanding. But again, we need to fight tooth and nail about what the Bible's saying versus about what other people will be preaching as coming from the Bible. But they don't always line up. Is that fair to what you're saying? Okay. Go ahead, Rodney. Hmm.
God knows his anger from heaven, or excuse me, God shows his anger from heaven against all sinful, wicked people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. They know the truth about God because he has made it obvious to them. For ever since the world was created, people can see the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing him.
Yeah, no, very true. I think there's a point, and what we're going to be going through for the next 3 minutes is skimming through at this point Psalm 19. It shows that very thing of what you're talking about, Rodney. There is this idea of what creation does. Again, Psalm 19:1 starts it. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. There's this truth, this evidence of what we can get out of understanding the meaning or the telos of creation, is that there is a design meaning to it, and it points to us, and at least our facet, or at least to the facet of like how we're to understand it, and then look into these deep truths about God, and then applying it into our lives or acting on that knowledge. Go ahead, Mike. For sure, and that is definitely for those who didn't hear Mike, or for those on the live stream, seeing this idea of you can look at the age of the earth potentially by going through the different names, going through the chronologies, going through the history of the New Testament, all these different names, how it matches up with everyone in the Old Testament. And there is some interesting stuff there, right? Seeing that I think it's Noah and Adam could have lived at the same time. When we typically think of Noah like much later, and then Adam was like much earlier. So there's a lot to unpack for sure. We're gonna speed through this real quick. So understanding Psalm 19, I'll just go ahead and read it all, and then we'll just kind of point out the different things from it. So I'll be reading all the different verses, 1 through 6 here, then 7 through 11 is on the next slide, and then 12 through 14. If you want to get the slides later, you can ask me and I can send them to you, or if you just want to take pictures, I'll be going quickly enough, and you can take them at this time. So Psalm 119, starting in verse 1, if you have your Bibles, it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. Precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever.
The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are righteous. They are more precious than gold. They are than much. I'll start that again. They are much more precious than gold, than much pure gold. They are sweeter than honey from the honeycomb. By them your servant is warned. In keeping them there is great reward. But who can discern their own errors? Forgive my hidden faults. But keep your servant also from willful sins. May they not rule over me. Then I will be blameless, innocent of great transgression. May these words of my mouth and this meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. So I'll say this one thing, and then we can close with y'all with any comments or questions or thoughts. David shows this ladder. It starts with creation, then gets into the law or the instruction from God, and then it ends with prayer. It's this intentional design of what we're supposed to get out of creation. Much like what Rodney was talking about in Romans 1, verses 19 through 20, it's basically the fulfillment of Psalm 19. It's to show that we start with the creation. We start with this truth that God created the heavens and the earth, and we can understand the simplicity of that. Then, once we understand this truth that without creation, there is no God, there's no explanation, I guess, for God, then it gets into our lives and how we're to work out our salvation with fear and trembling, how we're supposed to live on this earth that God has created, again, for us. And then I think in the most humble way to respond to the reality that God created everything, and that he also created a law that is not a burden but a blessing for us to live by, we respond in this humble way of adoring and glorifying this creator of the universe, this Father, this Heavenly Father to us, the spiritual dynamic relationship to us. And then we ask that we can get on that path, that we can get into this form of righteousness or blamelessness that only God can provide. So this conclusion, if there's a design, there must be a telos to its design. Jesus is informing us how we ought to understand the telos of the universe, and Jesus' telos must be properly understood as followers of God, seek a better way of life, knowing Jesus' power aligns our lives with God's. Any comments, questions, thoughts? Design, goal, ultimate purpose, or end goal, ultimate purpose. It's the idea of it. If there's a design, there must be a reason for the design. Any other questions or comments? Speed through it just like Mike did. Appreciate your time. Thanks for indulging me. I haven't been teaching an adult class with y'all, so this is new to me. This is new to y'all, and I again just appreciate the blessing to be here for y'all. Thank you.
Next lab, I want you to find out.